Good morning, afternoon, or evening, beautiful light beings. I'm coming again here another week more with the information of the Cosmic Library by Andrea, Barnabe, and Naty Faviano, translated to all of you English speakers. Okay, today I'm coming with the third video of the girls. That is a really interesting them to talk about because it is what happened when we die. Okay, it's a Greek enigmas of death. All of us have heard about the doubt of what happened when we die. Okay, we start to live. We sometimes lost some relatives or friends, and then we start to ask to ourselves, what's happened when we die? Why we come to life if it has an end? So Andrea gives a lot of information, and the point of view it's from the quantum physics. Okay, so the information is really values, yeah, and it's really useful to leave the fear and on the side of the path. Okay, so we're gonna start from the beginning of life, like we are born from a mother and a father in a family, and then comes the doubt of what happens when we die and why we came if life ends. Especially these doubts are often born when we lose a loved one, an experience that is usually quite painful. The issue. Now I'm gonna start with Andrea's words. Yeah, the issue is the following: we don't come to Earth under a parachute or by chance. Okay, we come under a plan. We incarnate under this plan, and this is the same plan for the whole universe. Okay, nothing is out of the plan. The one who asks for the plan is the creator and at the source. Okay, never. And then there are hierarchies that administer. Okay, depending on what the race needs to learn on a collective level or a person individually, there are the administrators located in the central sun of the galaxy who are the elders of days, and there are 24 of them. They are in charge of this plan to incarnate. Okay, of those 24, there are two who are in charge of assigning each person where they are going to incarnate and for how long, with what function. There are only two ways to incarnate: to learn through positive or negative experience as a service or as a service, sorry. Both can be given in the same incarnation. Okay, you can come for the half of your life to learn something, and then you can, once you have learned, you can start your service, for example. I think I choose this one. I'm still learning something. To incarnate is to be born into a physical body here on Earth. Okay, between the soul and these two hierarchy of the elders of days, the incarnational contract is mutually agreed upon. Okay, so your soul agreed with the elders of days. You choose everything. A date is set for its termination, and the date is what we call dying. We never leave anything that escapes the life contract. What most of us souls who are alive at this time have signed of masses has been after 2012 to begin in service, to raise the human race from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. Okay, but as I say, I choose to start in service the half of my life, but I'm still learning. We are very brave souls who have come to live the transition of the fall of the system, of the economy, the politics, the economic system, the religions, from being in an old world to preparing a new one. This is what Naty said to Andrea. And this information is very important for many of us because many people must be wondering why I'm here. Many of us have been incarnating since Atlantis. When Andrea talk about this, I get fascinated. Being born and dying multitude of times since the last 230,000 years ago, and the cycle that ended in 2012 began in Atlantis. And what better to close this cycle for the transition, that the souls who came to open the cycle. We are all souls who began this journey, civilization after civilization, incarnation after incarnation. We are all very old souls, and we all know each other. It is time to start remembering this. When I listen to this or when I talk about this, I get the shiver on my skin. It's like we all know each other, and it's time to start to remember who we are and what are we doing here. So Naty make a question like, how many incarnations do we need to live? And Andrea said, this is an organization chart. We souls come in teams of souls. Okay, one team does its functions and it's changed by another team of souls as the race and the planet needs to live. Okay, and so it goes on. In the universe, everything is designed with mathematics and sacred geometry. That is why the minimum number of incarnations is 7, and the maximum is 777 incarnations. Although the average is usually between 115 and 180 incarnations. Okay, so a soul has to be really stillborn to come 777 times. Then Naty asked again to Andrea, at the moment we die, minutes before or sometime before death, many people comment that they see their loved one, that they see angels or Virgin Mary herself. Why is that? And Andrea gives a really beautiful answer. Our machinery is biomolecularly perfectly designed so that nothing is left out. The normal mechanism for a clean, alkaline, and high vibrating body activates a mechanism 2 hours or 20 minutes before. If the person is very high vibrationally, it can happen 2 weeks before, depending on the individual. This mechanism activates dimethyltryptamine, which is a hormone within the pineal gland, and we make a multidimensional connection with all the plants of all the planes and dimensions of the universe. We would say that we drop the frequency vial that we have during our lifetime, and what happens when this is activated before we die is that the dimethyltryptamine breaks the vial, and the first ones that we contact by design to feel comfortable and to be able to leave the biological body is the 6th and 7th plane of the 4th dimension, where family and friends are. The 4th dimension, which is all astrals, it is like a base or car park. It is like a waiting room. The 4th dimension has 7 planes, each one for a task. Many people have had experience. This is Naty talking. Many people have had experience with loved ones at their death, in which before they pass away, they told them who they were seeing. That is why this information is very useful, to know what is happening in this situation. And there is a dark myth that says that the relatives they see before they pass away are dark beings. This case is relatives who come for you. So it is good to know that those who come looking for you are really family members. Because yes, actually, this is really important to know, because all of us have listened about this kind of histories. Like I was seeing my mother coming for me, my grandpa, or something like that. And this is because the mechanism we have, okay? And Andrea is going to give you another beautiful explanation. In the universe, there is a 50-50 split. Nothing is totally light and divine, even when we are before we die. And it all depends on the vibration, okay? The vibration of the being for everything, for when we die or when we are born. It all depends on how we are vibrating, incarnated as well as disincarnated. For example, a person who has become very densified in the second half of their incarnation as an alcoholic or a rapist or a martyr, these people don't go to the plane 6th or 7th before incarnating. But as they are very densified, they will go to much lower planes of the fourth dimension. The lowest plane of the fourth dimension is the lower astral or threshold level. If the person dying is a martyr, has killed a lot of people, and let's say they are shot dead by a policeman, that person will go directly to a lower plane of the fourth dimension. It is not common. The human who has been incarnating and who has lived a more common existence goes to the 6th and 7th plane. In fact, these planes are the planes where we go before we are born and after we pass away. In fact, it's called the waiting world. Such beautiful, the waiting world. And now we have an answer, like what is it like to die? What does it feel like? What happens? Do we have to be afraid of it? Andrea's styles is fear 0. Okay, everyone can take the version they want. Okay, but I like Andrea's version. So, fear none. Okay, the light at the end of the tunnel and all the sense doesn't happen. In theory, if we have a normal frequency level and we have led a life in love and not hate, there is no tunnel of anything. One dies. The dimethyltryptamine is ignited. This happens to all species, animals included. And this seals our auric body, okay, in the etheric double body, which is where the soul is transferred when the silver cord is cut. The biological body expires, okay? The silver cord is what keeps the soul in the biological body. You never lose consciousness. You are perfectly alive and conscious. The only thing that happens is that the physical body is annulled and you are left living in the astral body. The dimethyltryptamine illuminates or charges with a specific file blocker of all the lower astral or dark races, and that blocks the electromagnetic file of the astral body, where the soul is going to stay after disembodiment. We have a perfect safety mechanism to get out of the body to be blocked with the anauric shield and with that etheric double body to transport us to the 6th, 7th plane of the 4th astral dimension. So it's like a belt when we are driving. Nothing bad can happen if you use the seatbelt. We have a specific design so that nothing happened to us. This is beautiful, wonderful. What dimethyltryptamine does is to form a film in the aura, so absolutely nothing bad can happen while we make the transfer to the 6th and 7th plane of the astral plane. We are still alive, but we are no longer in the biological body we had in that incarnation. And now comes another question. The person who is dying, is he aware that he's dying? Is he afraid when he sees himself out of the body? Is that process traumatic? At that moment you understand everything and there is no more fear? Beautiful question. And now Andrea says, as you pass all the frequencies and all the barriers, you automatically connect with the astral double body. What happens when we die is the same as what happens when we do an astral journey. What happens is that when we do an astral journey, we can return to our bodies, and when we die, we don't return anymore. But the situation or the sensation is the same. Dying gives extreme peace at the moment of living. The veil is lifted, and we can see the whole universe, all the dimensions, all the loved ones, and we realize that on Earth we were in a jar when we were alive. Beautiful, isn't it? Do we see everything? Are we participants in our death? Do we see our funeral? And yes, we see everything. We see our empty body. We see our relatives weeping. We have to understand that death is a mechanism of entry or exit of the biological body and nothing else. Okay? Because we are still alive in the double astral body. And if we understand that nothing happens, we shouldn't cry. Okay? Because when we cry and get sad, what we do is lower the electromagnetic field of the place and of the collective consciousness so much that we unintentionally form an egregor that escapes from us and begins to function alone with very densified energy, and we block the way to the one who has just died. Okay? And the soul remains stagnant for the first 3 days after death and becomes distressed and lowers the frequency and is connected to the sad frequency of those who cry. So, when we are in a funeral and we cry and cry and cry, the vibration of the place gets lower, lower and lower. And these two things happen. You form an egregor of sadness, really densify, and an egregor can act by itself, okay? The one who dies get trapped, or it's not trapped, but it goes slowly to the sixth or seventh plane of the fourth dimension. We have to generate peace for the person who has just passed away, to give them peace in their journey vibrationally for those 3 days. It takes to go to the third dimension, to the fourth dimension. It takes 3 days, okay? As we are coupling of mind, we are a coupling of mind, body and spirit. On the first day, we leave the physical body. On the second day, we leave the emotional body. On the third day, we leave the spiritual body. Peace and love must be given at least for the first 3 days. This is really important, to say goodbye to our relatives or our beloved ones. I think it is really, really important to have this information and know it, because when we really understand that death is not what we always have listened about, like everything ends and you lose all your relatives and you lose everything. No, nothing ends. Nothing. Like everything is continued, okay? Once, coming with another question. Once they are able to go into that fourth dimension in those 3 days, can they come and go and see their loved ones? Or do they live and never see them again? And that depends on the soul due to the multiple factors. It depends on whether that soul is allowed by the guides or the hierarchies to do a service of assistance to those who are incarnated. Or if it's a mother and it is difficult for her to detach from her children, and the guides keep the soul in the sixth plane of the fourth dimension and accompany them to interact with the loved ones until that souls understand that all is well and they live. Okay. There are souls that directly go first, where they have to go to the sixth or seventh plane of the fourth dimension, and from there they jump to the 14th dimension if they came in service of the 14th dimension, for example. They don't stay in the fourth dimension, seventh or sixth plane. It is beautiful to listen to this because it brings us a lot of peace to understand why we have to live this process. This video is information that nobody tells us, and that is totally true. And that we should keep this video, this information, you should keep for generations, for the next generations, because we are always curious to know what happens after we die. Okay, and it's also said that when you are about to die, you are asked, "Is that true, or do we come with an expiry date and that is unchangeable?" And Andrea says, "You can choose." The thing is that sometimes, by accident, you leave the body, but the silver cord is not cut, and the hierarchies appear, like geneticists, star doctors, or some spiritual hierarchy. They make you understand that it isn't time to cut the silver cord, but that the physical body is too traumatized, like, for example, in a car accident, and the soul and the astral double leads to the body, because the trauma suffered is too strong. But it isn't your time to die. The hierarchies explain to you that you are going to come back. And sometimes the star doctors hold you back a little bit to coordinate the doctors on Earth to repair the biological body. Like, for example, if you are having a heart attack, the star doctors have to coordinate with the Earth doctors to defibrillate the heart, okay, and you come back to your body. So, and the star doctors, and they accompany you back to your physical body, having explained to you that it isn't yet your time to die, and that you have to stay on Earth incarnate until the time that your contract indicates, and the day that you sign that it expires, it cannot be accelerated. Okay, so you cannot die by accident. The day you sign is the day you leave, whatever happens. Yeah. So how is that date stipulated? The date is managed under plan. Suppose that in the last 3 incarnations you learn to overcome the ego. Then you go to the elders of day, and we are arranging the next incarnation. And we ask them to add an item that is the final test in this as the last incarnation to handle the ego. Then you may have to pass short and easy test, or they may set up a program for you to learn what you are going to learn. That is called imposed karma. And I think I talked something about this with the elders of day, because I choose to have a really strong ego. It's like, okay, they set up a program for me. So I think I have an imposed karma. Interesting. Let's say you came to learn 2 or 3 little things, and you can see that before you incarnate, okay? Because outside of incarnation, there are no timelines, and we can see future timelines and know if we are going to do it fast or not, if we are going to do it right, if we are going to take a long time or a short time. So the expiry date depends on what you come to do, and more or less within a range of time, if you are going to achieve that you came to learn. If you achieve it within your 40 years of life, for example, you have no more items to work on, then you retired at 40. This is a learning plan. The date of death is immovable. It cannot be altered, okay? Is there a cause for people who die in a group, like plane crash or a tsunami? Why does it happen? This is really interesting. This is within what is specifically soul service. Okay, people who pass away in a communal manner, actually, what is needed is a certain frequency and charge that is caused by several people passing away at the same time. Speaking of collective issues on the planet, sometimes what needs to be done is to clear negativity from an earth vortex or geopathic line crossing. And this is, it's really simple to understand, because Andrea give us a really simple and beautiful explanation. Let's suppose that in the colonization of certain geopathic territories, there were indiscriminate killings of indigenous people, okay, with much suffering. Then this energetic charge remains in the geopathic vortex of that whole area. Okay, the only way to clean this is to the only way to clean that vortex of the place is evacuated with the same number of souls that died in that slaughter. Let's suppose that 100,000 people died. The bad energy of the suffering of those 100,000 people remain anchored, and the same number of souls that died in that slaughter has to die again, like in a crash plane, earthquake, something like that. So the only way in the third dimension to release that energy anchored telepathically in the earth is for this another group of souls in service incarnate to contain the same frequency, and when they die, release those souls that remain trapped. This is a collective service. So this happens, as I say, in earthquakes, plane crashes, etc. It's a form of design to help counteract the negative electromagnetic charge with the same positive charge of those who pass away as a group. This is taken care of by the quantum physicists who take care of the electromagnetic grids of the Earth for the planet. The quantum physicist in charge of this is Cryon, as we say in the first program when we explain the electromagnetic grid around the Earth. If you haven't seen the first program, I encourage you to see it. We are handling this information now because we must awaken consciousness. As we were all asleep consciously, we must now awaken to move to the next level of consciousness. Those are Andrea's words, and I repeat because I think it's true. For me, it's resonate 100%. So, the people who are killed is a karmic issue? Two things only. Either is it karmic, but we still have to know that even thought it was karmic for the earth and the souls that we are in right now, the karma was closed in 2012. We don't have to worry about whether we carry karma or not, because the law ended in 2012. So you can die by accident, the bullet deflects and kills someone it wasn't meant to kill, or if it's not by karma, okay? But that bullet that kills you by accident, does it kill you because it was your time to die? It was his turn. Yeah, it was your turn to die. But there are several items, okay? Sometimes for beings who come to service as well, because you can come one stage to learning, another to service. And if it's to service, it is modifiable. In general terms, the bullet was going to kill the one who had the end of the vital contract. So, for example, in the situation, it can look like an accident, okay? I shot the gun and the bullet go to another person, but this person has signed the end of the vital contract, okay? So what it looked like an accident here on the third dimension on life, it was signed by contract for the other person to die, okay? Throughout this present incarnation, no matter what age we are, there are many souls who have volunteered to make the transfer to fifth dimension. And many souls who have signed up not to make the transfer to fifth dimension. They don't have a specific expire date by contract, but they signed that when the planet was already recalibrating to fifth dimension, at some point they would retire because they signed that they didn't want to be part of this during their lifetime. So even if there is no specific date, this person will get the wrong ballot because he signed it not to leave the fifth dimension of this planet. This is specific because they are making the transition from third dimension to fifth dimension. So the people who are making the transition is not going to die yet because we sign, okay, the people who sign the transition to fifth dimension, we're not going to die yet because we have to make the transition. But the people who doesn't sign to make the transition are gonna die for some reason. It doesn't matter if it's a wrong bullet or uh, illness or something like that, okay, or car accident or something like that, heart attack. So regarding astral travel, in a way we die and return to the body, and when we sleep we also die in a way. So in astral travel, it is as if we die and are born again. This was talked about, and Naty and Andrea confirms this information because that's exactly right. Okay, the only difference between dying and astral travel is that we die, but because we are connected to the silver core, we are assured that we will return to the body. The only difference is that the silver core keeps us connected and that the biological body doesn't die when the soul leaves for astral travel, unlike when we die, because in the spinal cord we have an automatic pilot, okay? The soul leaves the body, it remains attached to the body, and the body continues with its physiological functions, such as breathing. At the moment the soul returns to the body, it has the body sustained with life. This is the only difference with this. And does Andrea recommend astral travel? That is a safe and good experience, and it all depends on the degree or frequency gradient of the soul at the time it goes on the journey. If you do astral travel and you take drugs or consume alcohol, or you want to do astral travel when you did the Ouija board, for example, you have to be really crazy to do this. This is something I say. It is a barbaric risk for the negative, okay, because you have no self-command, and there you are commanded from outside. A light being is not going to command you, never, okay? But the dark or lower astral beings are going to take control of you, okay? So if we are going to have a conscious journey and we are going to go into the lower astral to close portals, then the journey is very safe. I do this on nights. I go to the lower astral to close portal. So this is really funny. But if we are not going with a conscious in a good conscious level, or we are intoxicated or low in frequency, we even run the risk of getting sucked into the lower astral. So this is something really dangerous. Okay, if you go to the lower astral, it can be really, really dangerous. But right now, the lower astral is getting fixed or disassembled from Earth. So we have another question. Now the questions were did by the people who were watching the video on live. As this channel grows, I will be doing some lives on Facebook just to try to give some response or answers to the people. Okay, so we will see. But and when they did the program, this were the questions people did. Sometimes it happens that when doing Akashic records, if a person has a relative who has recently passed away, or if they have a certain trauma or pain that they cannot overcome, that loved one appears and they work on their grief. They give me message, the people who was asking did Akashic record, giving a specific information so that the relative knows that this person is in contact with them, and they say goodbye. Why does this happen? Is it authorized? Andrea answered, yes. When we die, there is a moment of transition that we don't go through alone. We are always accompanied by our guides, both alive and after death, and the guides have all kinds of considerations for both the person who dies and their relatives, especially if the person who dies is a son, leaving the mother in a bad state. The guides accompany the deceased and allow contact with their relatives for a certain period of time, which is usually very short, so that they can establish communication directly or through a medium. There is no need to be afraid of anything, because the disembodied soul is accompanied by its guides. They determine the time of connection and how deep that connection is. Even if the living relative with whom the contact is being made becomes too ill and begins to cry a lot, the contact is cut off at that moment and left for another time. In general, they interact with joy, remembering anecdotes and recognizing each other, because all the intensity and emotionality is on this side of the third dimension. This is where the highest density of matter is. But when we disincarnate and go to the fourth dimension, which is more subtle, there is not so much sadness, not so much drama. For this reason, the message that the deceased bring when they communicate is always, "I am well." The rest, what you read in networks channelings, which are negative, for Andrea, is pure invention to keep people in fear, so that they lower their frequency and can be manipulated, nothing more. This is a really, really important information, I can bet, I can assure. Another question we have is, the people who are dying and at this time from sudden death, that is, for example, a stroke, why is that? Well, it has already been explained that it's because it was their turn and it was their time, or because of the need to live quickly, because by contract they decide not to belong to the fifth dimension. So Andrea has Naty say another question to Andrea. What happens when we die for seconds and then we come back to this planet? Is this real, what happens? Well, it wasn't the date of departure. If you go out and you come back, it wasn't your date. It's simple. You could have left because of something that was going on the body and came back because it wasn't the right time. And if it's real, 100% real, okay? Is there such a thing as purgatory? It is the threshold level. Purgatory has to be demystified. It is not a place where we purge signs or burn in hellfire or anything like that. When we disincarnate, we go to this level because it is the level that has the same frequency as us. And that is where you find healing places like our hospitals here, where they heal your wounds of any kind. What happens is that with a frequency level like the one you have when you live here, you can get to a level 6 or 7. So you get to the threshold level, and in the frequency hospital you hear and raise your own frequency. There are also hospitals in the motherships where the deceased is taken to heal. There are several planes with hospitals. Why are there people who, from a young age, have to say goodbye to so many close ones? Because it was arranged in the vital contract as an almic group, because everybody has to learn from that. Generally, this happens when people in previous incarnations have not worked on detachment, and there comes a time when the teachers or the souls itself see the needs for the lesson to be learned at once, in one incarnation. And for this, the souls who are going to die, who are normally already detached and don't mind dying quickly to teach another soul, apply voluntarily. And this is usually the last opportunity for them to learn that particular lesson. So everything is a learning. Everything is a lesson, even when we die. Do young children see their recently deceased relatives? Why? Yes, they can see them because for the first 7 years of life, the human being has no veil. The pineal gland is active and fully open, and that is why at birth babies have open crown bones in the skulls, so that the pineal function as an antenna that can connect to all dimensions. That is why they can see the secret Santa is an example of this. Or, for example, when a baby is looking to anything. And they start to laugh and make this with the finger. I can relate because my sister told me about my niece that she was talking with somebody, but my sister couldn't see who was. And she get a little bit afraid. But fear zero, please, fear zero. I like this lemma, this motto, fear zero. Information, it's the way to fight the fear, and we are coming with this information to fight the fear. Will those who commit suicide have to purge their action in order to incarnate? Was that action agreed upon before they incarnate? So the first thing to clarify is that no life contract contemplates or permits suicide. The person who commits suicide is in violation of their life contract. From the fifth dimension upwards, there is a terminology, dimensional defectors or dimensional desertion, which is when a request is made to prematurely terminate the life contract. This is only true for planets that are fifth dimensional and above, as the being is not fulfilling its apprenticeship because it's not comfortable where it is. Then the silver cord is simply cut so that it can leave the body. So suicide is a violation of the vital contract for self-harm. It's not allowed, and suicide is death through self-harm, and incarnational law is violated. The one who commits suicide enters a dimensional plane, which is in the fourth dimension, which is like a dimensional pocket, which is called limbo. In limbo, the souls who commit suicide are left watching and reliving in full consciousness their own suicide over and over again, and remain there until they understand for themselves in full consciousness that this wasn't the path they were meant to follow. What horrible little bit to live over and over again your suicide until you can understand that it wasn't your path. Once this understanding is reached, one leaves limbo and moves to the sixth and seventh planes of waiting, knowing that in no other incarnation should one commit suicide. So, did the aborted choose to go through that experience? Aborted souls are practically the same case as suicide. No one incarnates to be killed, and there is no such thing in the life contract as being aborted. Souls who are aborted are taken to subplanes in the same fourth dimension, known as nurseries, where they are taken by their own receiving guides. In these nurseries, they are cared for beings who take the place of third-dimensional parents and continue to evolve, serving years on an holographic plane of evolution. When these souls are balanced, have erased memories and overcome the miscarriage they have experienced, the hierarchies transfer them to level 6 and 7 to reincarnate. Miscarriage is something else, which is contemplated in the incarnational plan, since the soul is not to blame if the container in which it is going to gestate is damaged, or if the mother cannot sustain the pregnancy because she consumes certain substance and is not totally healthy. If the container that is going to develop within the mother's body for various reasons is going to be damaged and is not fit to hold the luminous soul that is going to incarnate in it, or simply the vibration of the container is not compatible with that of the soul that is going to use it, the soul and the fetus are automatically uncoupled. This soul doesn't go to the nursery, it enters the waiting planes to incarnate again, in the same mother or in another mother, in a container that is already gestating, that has a vibration and health according to the light of the soul that is going to occupy it, coming from a healthier mother. When the miscarriage occurs in a mother who is healthy and therefore the fetus package is healthy, it is usually because the soul that occupies it lacked a little time from the previous incarnation. So instead of making a new life contract, the time the soul has been missing from the 14th day of gestation, in which the soul is already attached to the fetus, is taken. The soul completes its time, which can be 1 second or several months, and then dies. Within the pain that the mother goes through for the loss of the child, she can actually be aware that she has helped that soul to finish the time that was missing from its life plan. Therefore, what is important at this time is the information, because it's allows you to be aware of why things actually happen the way they do. And you leave the drama and the sadness and all those things from the third dimension. So, you would have to wait 3 days to cremate the body. And yes, cremating the body immediately upon death is not right. The best thing to do is to cremate the body, especially for those who disincarnate at the low frequency, as they will instinctively want to return to the body. Cremation should be done at the end of the third day, because the human is the union of the 3 bodies, mind, body, and spirit. The soul takes 3 days or 3 cycles of 1 day each to disengage from each body. 1 day cycle for the mind, another day cycle for the body, and a 3rd day cycle for the spirit. When the body is cremated, on the 3rd day, the disincarnate will feel nothing, for he will no longer be linked with any of the bodies, and therefore has no need of them. So really careful to cremate the bodies. Wait for the 3 days, and 3 days in peace and love, not with sadness, as we say before. So it is possible to know our expiry date or the date on which we sign the end of the contract. And yes, you can, only by going into the Akashic record, asking that specific question, as long as the guardians of the records allow you to know. But the guardians don't give out that information if they see that it's not in the person's best interest to have that knowledge, because it can be a double-edged sword and can divert the person's path. The other way is to do regressive hypnosis therapy up to the moment before incarnating. At the moment when the contract is signed, and you read the information yourself in your own contract, accompanied by a good therapist who will take you to that point. There is no other way. And can it happen that a person, knowing the day, starts to live a more risky life because he thinks that nothing will happen to him? Yes, it can happen. If something happens to you, your guardians make sure that your silver cord is not cut. It's very common. And because those who have an unawakened consciousness know that what's outside is much more beautiful than what it's in here, so when the day approaches, they look forward to it with joy. Why is it that a person can feel the death of another on several occasions and in different cases, before it happens or at the very moment it happens? This happens when the sensing person is vibrating very high, a sensitive person. A person who is in a high vibrational frequency reaching the 5th dimension develops 50 more sense. Apart from the 5 already known from the 3rd, okay, we have 5 sense normally. But we are going to develop 15 sense more, okay? So within this 15, the first 2 to be activated are clairaudience and clairvoyance. With the activation of these 2 senses, the human becomes a cosmic perceiver, human who perceives that is around him and invisible to other people. This ability can be switched on and off for periods of time and allow the perceiver to perceive what is going to happen to another person, like a death. Soon, this will happen to all humans who recalibrate to 5th dimension. It is going to be amazing. When a person dies, Does she awaken consciously, or does he or she have to wait a while? Does he or she go into a lethargy, or does he or she become so vulnerable that she can be tricked by the archons? No. Normally at death, the soul goes directly to the appropriate plane of the fourth dimension. The only way it can be trapped by a dark entity from the lower astral is if it was a person who was a heavy alcoholic or heavily contaminated with drugs or medicines. It is not bad, nor is it good. What happened is that his vibrational file is lowered so much by the intoxicant that it is not enough to go directly to the astral level that corresponds to him, or on the sixth or seventh plane of expectation. In any case, if that soul in the course of his life worked black magic, then yes, by a law of correspondence or resonance, he goes straight to the lower astral. But it was what it chose to do during its lifetime, so that when it reached the astral, it cannot choose to go to the planes of life. So, if you work with black magic, you will go to lower astral as a reward for your black magic. A soul with a higher level of consciousness goes directly to plane 6 and 7 to wait to reincarnate, and if he is finished with his incarnational plan, he's waiting to be reconnected with his cryogenic body from the star system he came from. Whoa, we have a cryogenic body. This is going to be explained in another program. Are those who are in coma trapped by the lower astral, and that is why they don't return? No. All the comatose people go to the 6th and 7th holding planes. They don't go to the lower astral. They don't wander. And those who are in coma, can they see what is going on and around their physical body? They come and go, okay? They can move as they wish. They can go or they cannot go. And when the doctors in heaven tell them that their body is reconstituted, they reassemble it. Or they never have their body reconstituted, and when the end date comes and they pass away, they cut the silver cord and they stay directly on plane 6 and 7. What does being a medium depend upon? It is a vital contract? No. It depends on the vibrational grade of the molecular body, because the capacity to be mediumistic is in the machinery that is in the human body. So, if it's a being of light with a biology vibrating at a certain frequency upwards, anyone in that condition is a medium. But if we go through life and focus, running around and fully attending to third dimension things, jobs, studies, parties, etc., we will never activate the mediumship capacity. The mediumship capacity will never be activated because it requires focus. Achieving mediumship or any other capacity requires perseverance and training. So, all those who die with cancer are deceived by the archons because they have taken so much medication, rates, etc.? No. We all have our dice guardians who protect and accompany us, like the guardian angel, who is a being of the 9th dimensional rank that accompanies us while we are alive, during the transference, and when we are already dead. So, if you have a circumstance in your life that wasn't chosen, such as having to take medicine for an illness, of course you have a lower frequency when you die, but you don't go to the lower astral, because the stellar doctors are waiting for you in the hospitals. It is because those who suffer from schizophrenia channel in the lower astral? No, and this is really important information. Schizophrenia itself shouldn't exist and doesn't exist as a design for the human. It is a distortion of the frequency of the neocortex of the brain, which can exist for two reasons. On the one hand, because the person starts to do things they shouldn't do, such as black magic, and ends up with a distortion, with a really big distortion. or because it was implanted by lower astral beings or dark races that were infiltrated on the planet to dominate the human. Oh my God. As we are untamable or unviolable by design, as we possess the Cadisto code, the dark reptilian races, especially the Draco who were dominating the planet but are now being taken out of it, with technology implanted with chips or with electromagnetic frequencies that reach the brain, for example, the MK Ultra, they were doing this, okay? That what they are looking for is obedience to the dark races. And if the person doesn't do so, they send through the implant an electromagnetic frequency that distorts or damages the cerebral neocortex. It is possible to get out of an implant by ourselves, but we have to be very attentive. As soon as we realize that we have thought or action that aren't typical of us or not our own, we seek to return to our own axis, to our own being, so that the implant doesn't work. If a human being, on the other hand, is so distracted by the third dimensional life that he is not focused on himself, on understanding who he is or what he has come for, he is easily controlled through implants. And this is a really, really important them. The implants seek to turn us to the dark side. When they can't achieve that, then they seek to drive the brain mad, and that ends in schizophrenia. A person with schizophrenia who dies automatically goes into the light because the implant is for the physical body, not for the soul or consciousness. So they disembody in a high vibration and go to the appropriate plane. So this was everything for today. I hope to have somebody helping me in this mission really soon. And for the moment, I'm bringing this information with all my love, humbly. I hope you like this video. If you like, you can help me grow the channel, giving a like and subscribing. And for sure, sharing. The more important thing on this information is to share, because it's information from the Galactic Confederation, from the quantum physics. It's totally scientific information. Andrea is the best Melchizedek I have known. Their work, the labor of Andrea and Naty is really beautiful, because they are giving us in Spanish, as I say in another video, they are giving us in Spanish all the information about the ascension process. We are really happy since they start. So give a like, subscribe, and share if you like this content, please. In the next program, we are going to talk about the soul, which is another really, really beautiful them to talk. So, ciao. See you next week.